On today's video, I'm going to be applying the finish to this base that I've been building in my garage. I don't have any pro equipment like a sprayer or spray booth, so I'll be using stuff that's readily available to everyone, like spray cans of lacquer. I'll be staining the body and applying a nice clear coat to the whole thing. So let's get into it. I just got to jump in here quickly to say this video is a re-upload. I re-uploaded it because since I originally made it, I learned some new information. That information is you should not wet sand acrylic lacquer with alcohol. It damages the acrylic lacquer. So in the video, when you see me sanding with methyl hydrate, just remember, you should be sanding with soapy water. Don't sand with alcohol. All right, back to the video. All right, so just to recap, in the last episode, I got this thing sanded down beautifully to 320 grit. So I'm going to be staining the body, but I'm going to be doing a clear finish on the neck. So I don't want to actually get any stain on the neck. So what that means is I've got to actually seal the neck before I start staining the body. Normally with lacquer, there's such a thing as lacquer sealer. If you're using like a spray gun, you can mix it. I believe it just has more solids, less thinner, or it might be vice versa. I can't remember honestly, but I'm using spray cans. I'm using the same type of lacquer I used on my last project, which is acrylic lacquer. This is just stuff that you can get at like the auto parts store, but they don't make a lacquer sealer in this stuff. So I'm just going to spray a coat onto it, and hopefully that works good enough as a sealer. I'm pretty sure it will. My fingers are crossed. So I'm just going to tape off the parts I do not want to get lacquer on, which is the maple, basically. The next thing I'm going to do is take my acrylic lacquer and just spray a coat over the walnut neck. I just put a piece of plywood under it to get it off the table. I'm just worried about the back of the heel. It turned out pretty nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this sit for a minute, and then I'm going to actually peel this tape all off of here because I don't want it to basically get glued on with the drying lacquer. Okay, so there we go. I got the neck all sealed. Now I'm just going to let this dry and then we can get on to staining it. So in my last video, I mentioned I had some aniline dyes that I'm going to use to stain this base. What I'm going to try to do is make this base really bright green in the center, and then around the edges it's a little bit of a darker green, so it's kind of like a sunburst from like a darker green into a really bright, vibrant green. So what I'm going to have to do is mix up two different shades of green. Now with aniline dyes, apparently you can mix them with water. I've always known that you mix them with alcohol. So what I'm going to use is some methyl hydrate. I don't know if this is the right type of alcohol to use. It's just what I have. The instructions say to use rubbing alcohol, but I'm going to use this. So if this doesn't work out, it's my fault. So the first thing I'm going to do is just pour some alcohol into these bottles. That's probably good. Put on some gloves. Let's just put a piece of wood down so I don't ruin my cardboard right off the bat. Okay, so maybe the first thing we'll do is just get some yellow put in these. Okay, so that's looking pretty bold. So I just have a piece of maple here, so I can kind of see what this will look like on it. Just take a little bit of this, maybe a little bit more. So yeah, it's pretty yellow. I think I'll start adding my blue in now too. Wow, that really darkened up quickly. Oh, it doesn't look as dark. All right, so that's more of a green. I feel like that is better for the lighter portion of it. Let's work on the darker part of it. So I'm gonna add some more blue into here. We'll make a note that this is the light. It's definitely darker green. We'll just add a little bit more. Add a little bit more yellow too. definitely a bit more. I liked it a bit more blue than that though. Okay, so we got 2 shades of green there. Now let's see if we can blend between the two. So I'm just going to use some alcohol on the rag. Kind of get a bit of a blend there. Okay. Okay, so I got my base back here. And the first thing I'm going to do is just put a whole layer of this light stuff over the whole body. And I'm just using regular shop towels for this. I should also mention, apparently you can also put this on with like an airbrush. I was kind of wanting to do that for this, but I didn't end up getting an airbrush. So we're going to do it this way. Yeah, hopefully it works out good. Okay, so we got our lighter of the 2 greens applied to the base. So now I'm going to take out my darker of the 2, and I'm just going to go along the edges with that. Okay, now comes the tricky part. I got to fade the dark into the light. So the first thing I'm going to do is just dab along the edges with my dark. So that's looking pretty good. Now I'm just going to take some straight alcohol and just kind of soak down a rag and maybe try to just blend between the two a little bit. All right, I'm just going to let this do his magic and flip over and do some on the back now. So again, this is the dark stuff here. And I'm just going to dab along the edges. Okay, now I'm going to take some straight alcohol and just, again, try to blend it a little bit better. Okay, you know what? I think I'm going to actually come back with a little bit of this light stuff here on the back. And just kind of do a little bit of once over with that. You know what? I think I'm just going to leave it. I think I'm just going to leave it like this. Let this dry out. And yeah, take it from there. All right, so I've let this dry and it's looking all right. That looks a little bit splotchy, in particular on the back. That is actually just from the grain of the base, because I didn't use fancy, fancy maple with a nice grain. I used, honestly, cheap stuff. So that's why it looks splotchy. It's just where the grain is. So my next step now is I'm going to lay a layer of clear on this and just bury this stain in here so that, yeah, it's locked in. So first thing, I'm going to be wearing a dust mask when I do this. So I'm not really going to be narrating this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray the face of my headstock first and probably the back of the headstock. Then I'm going to hang it up and then proceed to spray the rest of the body. You'll see what I'm doing. Okay, so I've let this dry overnight after spraying 2 cans of the acrylic lacquer on it. So what I'm going to do now is just give it a quick sand. I'm just basically sanding between clear coat so I get a nice smooth finish. I think the last time I did this, I used like 400 grit. I don't have enough 400 grit. So I'm actually going to try 600 grit. Instead of sanding it with soapy water, I'm going to be using some more of this methyl hydrate, which is alcohol. Just be aware that this stuff, obviously it's alcohol. It's extremely flammable. I'm doing this nowhere near any kind of ignition source. This can light up real quick, potentially very dangerous. So, be aware of that. So I'm just going to put a piece of this on my sanding blocks. Alright, so things aren't going as smoothly as I would like. Well, that's normal for me. So, You can see here, I sanded through the green a little bit. Got a little bit too greedy. So that sucks. And also happened here on the back. And I also got these weird white marks, which is, I think, because I let the alcohol soak in to the lacquer too much. I'm just going to try and touch up these green marks if possible. But, yeah, not too stoked. Okay, so I'm just going to try and use a heat gun to get rid of these kind of milky marks. I think this is what happens if you put a cold drink on your coffee table without a coaster. So I'm just going to try and dry this area out. Okay, so I did some touch-ups. It's not perfect, but you know what? What are you going to do, right? It's kind of a learning experience for me, to be quite honest. On the bright side, I was able to heat those milky areas out of here. So I think it was like what I was thinking. The alcohol just got soaked into the finish, but it's out now. So at this point, I'm honestly just going to spray a few more coats of lacquer on here. Hopefully that's a good idea, but I guess we'll find out. Okay, so if you saw my other video where I was doing the prep work on this guitar, you would have seen that I had a couple of imperfections. There's a scratch right there, or a gouge right there, and there's actually a knot right there. Both those I was not able to, well, honestly, I probably could have somehow fixed those in my prep stage, but I didn't. And I was like, I'm just going to fix it in the clear coat. So I did already fill these this morning, but I had to do that before I left for work. So I didn't have a chance to film it. But luckily, or unluckily, I have another ding on the back that I am going to show you how I fill it. Okay, so here we go. We got the back of the base, and there we have it right there, a dent. I was not able to steam that out. And while we're here, we also have a couple of knots. What I'm going to do is fill all three of these imperfections. So all I'm going to do is take some of the lacquer that I'm using. I'm going to spray it into the cap until I have some liquid lacquer in the cap. So you can see there I got some liquid lacquer in the cap. Now all I'm going to do is just pour it into these imperfections. Whoa, way too much. So I'll just take a little paper towel and just soak the extra stuff up. All right, let's do these other couple here. So there we go. I just kind of filled it in by dripping some lacquer into it. What I'm going to have to do now is leave this to dry face down like this so that the lacquer doesn't run out of those cavities. This definitely isn't a professional way of doing this. It is what it is, right? So I'm just going to let this dry overnight. Just to recap, I put 2 cans of acrylic lacquer on this thing, wet sanded it with 600 grit, and then put another 2 cans of acrylic lacquer on it. So what I'm going to do now is wet sand it again, and then put 1 more can of acrylic lacquer on it. All right, so here we go. So I've got this thing sanded down. Of course, it wouldn't be a danger zone project if I didn't sand through my color coat on my last sanding. So right here, I've sanded through the green. So I'm gonna have to touch that up with a bit of the aniline dye, but you know, in all honesty, I could put another coat on here and then actually sand it again and then put a 6th can of lacquer on here, but you know what? I'm just gonna call it at this point. At some point, you just gotta say good enough is good enough. I know that that's kind of a frowned on thing to say in the guitar building world, good enough, but I'm saying it. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is just give this a really good wipe with just some alcohol. I did this after the last time I sanded as well, but I don't think I mentioned it. Just give it a good wipe and make sure it's clean. Just make sure there's no residual crap on it. Well, I think that's about as clean as it's gonna get. So I just got some of this aniline dye here, and I'm just gonna touch up these spots I sanded through. Ideally, you would not sand through your color coat, but it seems to be like an ongoing thing for me where I always sand through my color coat. Even before this channel, I sanded through my color coat. So it's nothing new. It's just, you know, clearly I'm not that great at finishing, but whatever. So my final can of acrylic lacquer. This is can number 5. I'm just gonna spray this on. And just a side note, I got this mask on, I got the back door of my garage open, and I got the man door open, so there's air flowing through. That being said, this I don't think is the correct mask for the lacquer, and honestly, this stuff stinks really bad, and it'll put you on another planet if you're catching my drift. So just keep that in mind if you're gonna try using acrylic lacquer. You need some good ventilation. Alright, that's it for this video. Things turned out pretty good if you ask me, and I really think the finish fits the vibe of the base. Obviously, I made a few mistakes along the way, but that's just par for the course on this base. Hopefully one day I'll be a pro at this, but right now I'm just a guy paying his dues and taking his lumps. Anyway, I have to let this bad boy harden up for a bit before I buff and polish it, so that means I'm not going to be working on it next week. But don't worry, I know I have to keep making video offerings on the altar of YouTube to please the algorithm overlord, so I'll be starting a new project next week. So if you found that interesting, I want to see how this base turns out, or if you want to see what my next project will be, make sure to subscribe. And if you're still watching, do me a favor and leave a like or a comment. It really helps out the channel, and I appreciate it. Until next week, talk to you later.